Good morning, everyone. Um, my name is Elena Ray. I work for the United Nations Environment Program, and I'm happy to be here to do another consultative meeting on sustainable tourism. Thank you very much for your attendance. We are going to really get the peak on this subject. So we are not going to have formal speeches, etc. However, I would very much like to have covered, but one, sorry for, um, that is the UN Resident Coordinator Team Leader that is going to give some opening remarks for today. I will be here together with Joya. We will help Joya Bandai, and we will be helping to facilitate the discussions later on. So, Robert.
Thank you very much. Good morning, bonjour. Yes, we. Anybody speak Swahili? No.
I know some words.
You know some words.
Missouri, yeah, some words.
Swahili is a devil. All of it. But thank you very much for joining us today. The aim of this workshop is to provide national priorities of based on UN communication, which will in turn form the government. As you all probably know, Mauritius aside and on our founding Mauritius culture attracts many tourists. Mauritius cultures attract many tourists in economic and social with an important potential and average tourism planning then despite however, tourism can have a major impact on the global, local, and international as well as increase according to estimate emission from the travel and tourism sector representing from 8 to 11% of global emission. This accumulation sector contributes to 6%. And at the same time, tourism is highly vulnerable to triple planetary crises that develop climate change, also adversity, extreme weather, events, fire, rising sea, also for food insecurity, damage as freezing shore. While the pandemic tourism it's all into near here, especially online media. This impact provides a approach. Next steps. Tourism can positive change as it cuts across major sectors, climate, climate change, such as transportation, protecting climate, nature, limiting pollution. Not only this, but not negotiable. For this reason, we have organized today's consultation, especially with tourism, is the objective to present Mauritius tourism strategy and understand and other stakeholders. Discuss the existing funding landscape, upcoming for a common understanding of the problems to be addressed in tourism, and discuss the theory of change led towards sustainability and agree on the next step, collaboratively develop proposal and mobilize resources, future work and sustainable tourism in Mauritius. Before I end this speech, I'm sure I was boring, but I'm going to ask you a question. That my son, I have a son, 8. My country is a landlocked country. See. One day we went to the beach. If you read Mauritius, we go to the beach. Then my son asked, because the guy who was driving on the boat, trying to enjoy life on the beach. He explained, said, don't throw things in this. He told my son, don't throw the bottle of water in the sea, otherwise the sea will die. The young boy kept quiet. We went until enjoyed in the sea. Then when we came back in the afternoon, asked me, Papa, est-ce que l'océan vit? Is the ocean alive? Yes. I then for alive, things that are alive produce themselves or inside. But now, how can the ocean does it produce itself? I never succeeded to respond to that question. Which means environment sometimes is difficult to explain. These are the new generation. So you are the expert. Maybe we help you one day to understand my concern that the ocean is alive and it can die. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now we are going to have an overall. We're going to have an overall view of what the Ministry of Tourism is doing in regards to sustainable tourism. So I would like to welcome Paula from the Ministry of Tourism to give some words that will be followed up by Darren from the Tourism Authority to get in depth of what is the plan for Mauritius.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm very happy to present to you our strategy for a green economy. The content of my presentation will be the national policy, the current situation, how the COVID-19 has impacted on our tourism sector and the tourism strategy for this year. Then what the ministry is doing, the ongoing projects, strategies, and then we will elaborate some on the challenges facing the tourism sector, and then we'll elaborate on the support required from donor agencies. This will be a conclusion. For the ministry, we have a vision, is a leading and sustainable island destination. At the ministry, we are responsible for the provision of policies, strategies for the sustainable development of the sector, and we have parasitical bodies under the Ministry of Tourism, the MTPA, which is responsible for the marketing of the destination, the Tourism Authority, which is the licensing body which regulates tourism activities, and then we have the TWF, which is concerned with the welfare of the family, the tourism industry. We have also the Hotel School of Mauritius under the purview of the Ministry of Tourism since recently. So what is our national policy? We want to maintain Mauritius as a selective and upmarket destinations. Why? Because we want to minimize the negative impact on the environment and on the infrastructure. And also we wish to attract high spending tourists because we want the spillover effects to have on the local economy. So what is the current situation right now? So pre-COVID in 2019, we have nearly 1.4 million of tourists. And the figure speaks for themselves, right? So in 2020, we have only 300,000 tourists. And 2021, 179,000 tourists. And now, right now, from Jan to October, the sector is gradually recovering. We have 705,000 tourists. So you can see by the percentage change, you can see that we have been severely impacted by the COVID-19. And in terms of tourism earnings, we have, in 2019, we have received around 63 billion of rupees. And now with the impact of COVID-19, it's only 17.6 in 2020 and 15.2 in 2021. And in 2019, the contribution of tourism to GDP was 8%. And with the COVID-19 impact, well, it fell down to 2.2% in 2020, 2021, only 2%. And now, with the recovery of the sector, it is forecasted that 7.2% the tourism will contribute to GDP. And another interesting trend that we have observed is that in 2019, the length of stay was around 10 nights. And now we have noticed it has gradually increased to 2020, 2.6, and 2021, 14.7. Are these trends going to stay for 2022 or next years? We have to think. So what the government has in terms of, you all know that the government has given tremendous support to the tourism sector in terms of wage assistance scheme, the self-employed assistance scheme. So for us, the impact of COVID-19 is an opportunity to grow better. Because in line with the UNWTO, we have to rethink about tourism, how to rebuild the tourism sector to make it more resilient against future shocks. And the trend is that right now, in the post-COVID global environment, it's very challenging because we have all these international issues, the climate change, the the natural resource depletion, the biodiversity loss, and the pollution. And right now it's very challenging because we have the Ukraine-Russian war, we have the rising fuel prices, which impact on the inflation, and the global outlook is very volatile and uncertain. So for this year, 2022, we have a target of 1 million tourists, and this has been, the strategy has been elaborated with close collaboration with the private sector, EDB, RM, Business Mauritius, and we focus on the recovery of our main markets. And there's also the focus of long-stay tourism. The strategy is to deliver as one Mauritius. So what the ministry, I'll just elaborate briefly on the ongoing projects of the Ministry of Tourism. So maybe I don't know if you are aware, the ministry has embarked on the zoning of lagoon project since 2007. And what the zoning of lagoon project consists of demarcation of dedicated zones, such as swimming zones, boat-free zones. And what are the objectives to ensure safety, security of tourists and immersion, and to also to protect the fragile marine ecosystem. And another ongoing project that the ministry is implementing is the tourism summit. The project was undertaken since 2007. We have the support from the Singapore Tourism Board, and these are the panels of international standards, and this is to facilitate visitors, give more information to inland attraction. The transforming tourism value chain. Well, the goal of the project is to reduce the gas emission. We have several targets under this project to be achieved by 2030. So we have 30% reduction in greenhouse emission, 35% in energy consumption, 100% single-use plastic, percent of input waste. So right now we have the recommendation of the implementation plan. Some of these are to reduce waste, and the focus is to sustainable energy also. We have to implement the energy management reporting framework, have to develop energy and greenhouse emission reporting framework, and this will have to be done in collaboration with the private sector. And another recommendation is that we can develop a remote reporting mechanism to segregate the contribution to the achievement of the national contribution and SDGs. To Sustainable Island project, I will let Darren, actually Darren from the tourism project, to elaborate more on the project. The project which was funded by the EU Africa project. So there's another project which the ministry was involved was the study on the carrying capacity of the lagoon. In fact, it's a project on the mainstreaming biodiversity in the management of the coastal zone, which is led by the Ministry of Blue Economy. So there was the objective to assess the impact on the different and to determine the carrying capacity of the lagoon. So the project was funded by the UNDP and is completed. Okay, this is a picture of what is the crown of thorns. What is the crown of thorns? My first one is from the reef conservation. So, yeah,
No, go back, go back.
okay. It's a starfish which is eating our coral. So the ministry has received money from the Ministry of Tourism has received money from the National Emergency Climate Change Fund under the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development. So the Ministry of Tourism has been acting as secretary for this project. And in terms of the reef conservation, has implemented the project to control the crown of thorns around the Lagoon of Mauritius. Thank you for your support. This is another strategy that the ministry is, we have the hotel development strategy, but we want to review it into the accommodation strategy. And these are the first speak for themselves, right? So we know that all hotels, when we have project proposals, they need to, one of the conditions of the EI license is that they need to have energy efficiency, by rainwater harvesting. But we want also to capture that the tourist residents and the small, medium enterprise, the guest houses, they need to also to adopt energy saving devices, etc. And these are and in terms of the planning policy guidance, it's very important that we need to adhere to the planning policy guidance because we want to protect our natural scape and landscape. And we have to stress that sites which are not received to quality development should not be kept, should be kept undeveloped. We have the guidelines for tourism activities. They are updated. We have to align the new trends and development and to ensure sustainable practices and the greening measures. So we know that the private sector, especially the large hotel groups, they are very well in advance. They have all the major hotel groups are certified. And what is required is that we need the support, the SME to provide the special support and attention. Because, for example, in the tourism sector, we have mainly one-person company. And for them, the focus will be on the day-to-day running of the business. But then we will need to give them support to how to mainstream sustainability in their business. Right now, we have some strategies. Development of a 10-year blueprint. It was announced in the budget speech of 2022. So this is the blueprint is a roadmap for the next 10 years of the industry. And we will focus on resilience, goodness, digitalization, and we want to provide clear vision for the sector to be more sustainable for the next 10 years. And we are having the collaboration of the World Bank on that development of the. And also the ministry wants to develop inland tourism, focusing on nature-based cultural and heritage tourism. So I think by the end of this year, we'll have a workshop with relevant stakeholders. Just have more insights on the map. What are the challenges? Well, after COVID-19 has impacted on the progress of the SDGs, and we have noticed that there's a changing profile of the customers. They are more discerning, they expect more for less, and they are very environmental conscious. And one of the challenge is that in terms of cleanliness of our destination, because in our feedback of survey of inbound tourism, which the ministry funded, we have the survey of tourism, that the tourists they complain about the ring, because when you go to the beaches on the Monday morning, just after the weekend, it's a very sad view for the and yeah, no, it is not, I mean that in the Mauritian population. So another very key challenge is the human resource. Well, there's a shortage of staff, like the worldwide phenomenon. In Mauritius, how to attract and retain, especially the youngsters, and how to keep our local talents. Another challenge is the monitoring of impacts. We can have all the laws, but we don't monitor, and we yes. And another challenge is that we have to paradigm shift. We have to change the mindset and attitude of the country. So mention that the climate change is one of the challenges that impact on the sector with the rural region, which affect biodiversity, which undermine the appeal of the Mauritius destination. And we also have the beach erosion, the sea level rise, flash floods. All these will undermine the appeal of Mauritius as an island destination. The challenge, the training and capacity building at all levels. And we need, the operators need to be more responsible in their business practices. And we have to mobilize financial and technical support for data and monitoring. So what we require, the support needed? Well, we intend to have the funding for consultancy services for Mauritius to be accredited as a green destination by 2030. But this, I'll let Darren to elaborate more on his presentation of the matter. Then the technical support may surely for the implementation of the recommendation of the implementation plan of the tourism value chain. And another support required is the awareness, sensitization, strengthening of the capacity of the entire tourism value chain. And incentives to private tourism stakeholders. As a conclusion, that there's a cost-cutting sector. It's more difficult to plan, manage, and to monitor. We need the collaboration of everyone, like the events, the synergy among stakeholders, so the required education. They are very small. I think that maybe.
So I will give the floor now directly to Darren, and we have a session later on where we are going to discuss what are how we can support, what are the shortfalls also of the core thinking strategy of the government. I think there is quite a lot of things in terms of development, in terms of inclusiveness. You know, if we want to reach up end, how we can bring those communities into the table, and how the vision of being a sustainable island can be realized. So direct.
Tout le monde. Merci Elena, merci Joya pour l'invitation. We are just waiting for the presentation on. But in the meantime, I believe that you have all heard about the Sustainable Island Mauritius project. So we are starting just not to be late. So it's a project which is funded, well, co-funded by the European Union. So 90% is being paid by the European Union and 10% by the Tourism Authority. And it is a project which started in July 2018, and unfortunately it will end in December of this year. So basically we had a budget of around 1 million euros, which were split into the funding of project. Yeah. So as I was saying, so the financing comes from the Switch Africa Green Project, which is under the European Union. So we had a budget of around 1 million euros, and these 1 million euros was split between CSCP, 50%. So CSCP is the Collaborating Center for Sustainable Production and Consumption, which is based in Wuppertal, Germany. And 50% goes for the coordination team at the Tourism Authority that really led and pushed with the operators. So the Tourism Authority is the main implementing partner, and the grant which was approved by the South Africa was to promote sustainability in the tourism, mostly for the tour operators, because tour operators, they represent around 900,000 tourists that came through them in 2019 out of the 1.4 million. So they represent a very big market share of our total tourist arrivals, and they have big influence also on the total value chain, where they can really influence them to adopt the best sustainability practices. So going very quickly on the engagement of STEM done these years. So we have been very impactful in terms of capacity building with the entire value chain of the tourism industry. So just for some examples, we have trained around 800 operators right now in Rodrigues Island out of the 1,000 that are supposed to be working in Rodrigues. In terms of taxi and tourist drivers, so far until 2022, 700 drivers have been capacitated in terms of best sustainable practices. We have been also working with the tour guides where we developed a certificate in tour guiding with the help of the MGI. So over there, we had around 37 that have already received their certificates. And there's another batch right now, which is currently working with another 25 students. But on top of that, we just launched a top-up guide for nature-based activities. So this is with the help of the École Hôtelière sur Garden du Val, and we are training 400 people in that specific area. In terms of the marine protection, marine ecosystem, and also the protection of the mangroves with the help of our partner Reef, we covered over 500 operators more onto the boat operating side. And we were also engaged in sensitization campaigns, which we called Respecter Maurice with the support of the MTPA and other partners among ARIM, where we had 9 campaigns that we covered in 2021. We had also workshops for hotels and tour operators, online courses when we couldn't do it because of COVID. And we have also many workshops and discovery tool co-creation day that we work with our partner Made in Maurice. And it has been quite successful because we try to connect the tour operators and the hotels more onto their procurement side together with the handicraft sector, and capacitating them also to have products and services that are up to the level of what tourists are looking for. We also have been organizing the first edition of the Sustainable Mauritius Tourism Awards that was held in May of this year, and it was surprising that we received more than 110 participants. So it was very, very heartwarming, and I think it was a huge success, giving recognition to these companies and organizations that have been dwelling and putting efforts into sustainable practices. We also assisted the Mauritius Standards Bureau in being accredited with the GSTC label, and their standards, which is called Blue Assist now, formerly MS 165. It is already recognized, but now they are in process of MSP being accredited as a certification body by the GSTC. So as long as I'm aware, the audits have already been done, and they are waiting for a final report, and then they can audit the other operators, big operators and small operators, and automatically be certified GSTC. We have also been assisting the government for the safe destination label with the WTTC. We have created a pamphlet for the SME operators for green strategies and also for get access for green financing. And we have created the Mauritius Pro Handprint Innovation Guidebook and Toolkit. So all these are accessible on our website, and it is free of charge for everyone. We are now a private member of HSCC, Global Sustainable Producer Council, which is the umbrella body for certification around the world. So there are more than 48 certification bodies that are affiliated to them, and they are the ones who give the instructions, the guidelines in terms of criteria for hotels, for tour operators, but also for the destination. We are the proud winners of two major awards this year. So in July, we won the Silver Awards for the WTM Africa Responsible Tourism. And not longer than 1 week, this month, we received the NBC Award for Africa, and this was given during the COP27 agenda. So the project still is going international, and we are getting some good attention out of it. So it's not finished, so we have some ongoing activities, but we believe we will finish by December. We need to digitalize the MOFI toolkit. So what is present on our website is in an Excel format. So it is a toolkit that can be used by anyone in the sector where they can really position themselves on a scale of sustainability where they are, and what are the guidelines and also the examples, best examples that they can use to improve their sustainability benchmarking. So this toolkit, we are going to digitalize it because we received funding from l'Agence Française, not l'Agence Française, but la Francophonie rather, and we need to complete it by February of next year. So all of these will be given to all the operators, and if we have a good policy from the Ministry of Tourism together with us, imposing that on operators to regularly fill in and send to us, then we could have a good database where we can really then go for the certification of a destination. We are currently going for a study in the identification of safe havens. Safe havens is where the boats go for shelter in case of bad weather. And when we know now with the climatic change, we need to find these places as soon as possible because at Codan, Mauritius Port Authority, they do not have that sufficient space. So we are doing a study to identify around the island where we can find these places as soon as possible. We are completing our training for operators in Rodrigue, so this will terminate in December. We will also terminate our tour course in tour guiding, and we will be one among the key speakers at the GSTC conference, which will be held in Sevilla in December 2022, where we will again showcase our project. So, parce que toute bonne chose a une fin, now we are going to end with the project, but we have in mind a vision which I think is strategic, because whatever we are doing, and we are not alone in doing things, because we have ARIM with its members doing a lot of things in terms of sustainability. We know out of the 114 hotels, at least 49 are already certified. We have Motuco, which is the first operator that has been certified. We have Belmar Constance Plage, which has been the first hotel certified Blue Oasis. We have many other projects, Cap Business. We have UNEP, which has been doing their reports. We have so many other agencies around. But now I think that we need to consolidate all that into one common objective, which is to get the destination certified. So by doing so, I think that there's a lot of work going to be done. But if we can do that, I think the benefits for the destination will be enormous. So if we are to be the first island destination to be certified, we'll be the first in the Southern Hemisphere. This is something which is going to be of marketable competitive edge for the destination, but also we will be attracting a lot of investment in terms of green technology and of all of those that are happening in the world. Because on every lips, on every economic side, it is about sustainability nowadays. And if we want to do so, I think we can do it because we have been speaking a lot with BCBs and Mauritius on what we have been doing so far. We can do it in 4 to 5 years. But we have to put a structure in place, and with the main goal of reaching this green destination status, we believe that we need a pilot case. So this is why we are going to push for Baudry, because it is smaller, and in terms also of their legislations and also with all their ministries all together, they are closer together. I think in terms of data collection, we can go faster with them and use Baudry as an example to then tackle the Mauritian destination. By doing so, we need to take into consideration the GSTC criteria for the destination. And these, we have tried to dissect them into 11 cornerstones that you can find down below. So it encompasses 4 main sectors, which is about the sustainable management. So this will have to go with the authorities, but hand in hand with the private sector. So a proper structure will have to be put in place so that we can collect data and be responsive enough in a timely manner to the certification bodies and also to the assessors and to the auditors. And we need a proper management, which is long way. So it is that we can no longer go with a government without a proper, let's say, not a ministry, but we need to have a segment which is here permanently but looks after the sustainable development of tourism. So we need to have that sustainable management, but then we have over 3 sectors that we need to look into. One is about the social impacts, so how tourism is going to favor positively on the social. We need also to have our environmental impacts, and we need to also have a proper governance. So nowadays, sustainable tourism is being phased out. The new word, the new trendy word that is being used is ESG. So we need to start reflecting also all our activities around that. So how we're going to do it? So I have listed in a few lines what will be the project ideas. So for example, for sustainable standards, we need to develop a sustainable and responsible tourism database, which we do not have currently. So if we can use the toolkit that has been developed by the MOFI and impose on all our operators to regularly give their feedback out of this logistic and software that we're going to put in place, then the Ministry of Tourism will have sufficient data to collect on a regular basis, monthly or 4 or 3 times a year, so that we can really have a starting base and see how the progression is going moving forward. If we go on to the cornerstone 2, which is prosperous economies, so we need to engage our companies in the tourism value chain. And I think that we need to top up on what we have been doing so far with certain companies within the Made in Maurice. So we need to go further than that because we have only touched around 37, if I'm not mistaken. There are so many other companies that we need to top up and include them into that tourism growth strategy, and so that they can be partner with the tourism actors. So we need to further co-creation process developed by SIM, and this we have all the guidelines. We even created a guideline book for the handicraft sector. It is now with Made in Maurice and also with the School of Design and the MGI. So we have created it together with our partners, and it is now for us to put it into implementation. Another idea is about the sustainable and responsible tourism products and services. So again, develop a destination marketing strategy that identify the new uniqueness of the island and its district. So we have been concentrating only on the island as a whole, but if we go and dissect region-wise, district-wise of what we have, and then take out the stress of the tourists on the coastlines, bringing them inside the island, I think that we will have won a lot in terms of sustainability. So we will go beyond the erosion factor and beyond the stress that is being caused in terms of waste management, with most of our tourists staying only on the coastline. Made in Maurice label, so we need to have a kind of such a label which is respectful of the standards and quality that we want to promote. And Mauritius as a destination is renowned for quality, local, sustainable, and responsible tourism products. That product can celebrate its environment, culture, and tradition. So going beyond our traditional dodo, which is imported from China, and trying to put our heads together and find a common denominator on what level of local products and the quality that we need to put forward. Mobilize sustainable tourism investment. So this is the big issue. How can we really have a proper green financing mechanism? So as you will recall, in May, we did have a meeting, a workshop with all the major banks in Mauritius, and we tried to tell them that banks, financial institutions are speaking a lot about sustainability, but when tourism operators, they go and knock at their doors, mainly the MSMEs, it is very difficult for them to get access to finance. So there needs to be a proper mechanism supported by government and the Ministry of Finance that put in place a kind of pool where the MSMEs can also get access to them, and that would be an incentive for them to really make the transition to best practices. We see the case also in government sector. Whatever we are hearing is about the small island states going up to the northern countries so that they can really put in place that kind of mechanism for us to get access to. So provide an enabling environment for sustainable tourism investment by coordinating action across different policy areas, including tourism, environment, innovation, and across different levels of government as well, to really promote sustainability. Socio-economic sustainability, so it is about the repurposed tourism to deliver greater benefit to the community and supporting local entrepreneurs. So here again, it is going beyond numbers of tourist arrivals, but this is really going into the data of how tourists is impacting positively on the communities of Mauritius. It's not about how they are spending only in hotels or via DMCs, but trying to find a good tourist satellite index where we can see how tourists is contributing to the communities. So this has to be developed, and we need to see also how we can capture data from the SMEs where tourists are going to spend. It is a process that we need to sit down all together and find the solutions to. Society and culture, again, going beyond the footprints of tourists in destinations, but trying to see how the tourism industry is positively impacting on the society, on the culture of Mauritius, and how we are going to really engage our artists and our cultural aspects together with the progress of tourism. Greenhouse gases and decarbonization, I think here we have already an implementation plan which is ready, and we are going to put more emphasis onto the plan of UNEP-TTBC, where it is already in there, and try to see how we can encourage that the operators in Mauritius. We need also the ecosystem and biodiversity. We have been working with the NPCS and together with Reef also, so not only inland, but also in our lagoon, and try to see how we can really reduce that loss of biodiversity, which is so important for our destination. Territorial planning, climate change action. So this is being done together with the Ministry of Environment here, Ministry of Environment, who is also on our steering committee. And I think that the tourism sector is one that is going to suffer the most if no concrete actions and immediate actions are being dealt with. So it's no longer only about dissemination, but we need to find the financial support from other countries, from other donors, so that we can remedy the loss that has already been incurred by our destination. Environmental sustainability is about environmental and natural resources. So energy efficiency, safe water management and conservation, and low carbon resource efficiency. So all these, I believe, have been taken on board in the implementation plan of UNEP and TTBC, and we're going to use that into our action plan, where we can further go into the proper implementation of these actions as recommended. Solid and hazardous waste management. I think now Mauritius is beginning to take cognizance of this real issue. There are some segregation are being made on a pilot case in some transfer stations. So I believe with the help also of the NGOs in Mauritius, we can go further than that and quicker also. So in terms of implementation, if we start as from 2023, which I believe is a bit early get the funds required, I think it is a process of 5 years and putting in place all the 4 major cornerstones as we stated, and within the 11 sub-cornerstones that we just gone through. To achieve that, we of course have some prerequisites, and we need a consequent budget that we can use to help for the human resources. We need consultants and experts in different fields that can support us, can be local, can be also international experts in our major international sustainability gatherings, also to be represented. We need equipment and supply for the staff. We need to further our capacity building, because so far we have only trained 3,300 people, when we know that the tourism sector, it touched around 100,000 people. So we need to further this capacity building, more sensitization campaigns, visibility actions, to make really the population aware of what we are doing and what is our objective and what would be the benefits of a green destination certificate for the island. Marketing of sustainable products and services. Of course, we have been doing it for all the winners of the Sustainable Awards around the travel fairs organized by the MTPA. So we have brought them together with us and give them the opportunity to market their services and products. Certification of the destination fees, so that is something that needs to be included in as a prerequisite, and also the auditing fees, which is something separate, which usually is a third party, which will be coming for these auditing. So that is on my side. It is a very huge objective, I think. So it is a 5-year plan, and I think that if we start quite early with making the best use of what Rodrigue will be doing, right? I think that we can learn out from it and then try to adopt as soon as possible for Mauritius as it is.
Thank you, Barry. So I think that I just would like to provide a little bit of clarification here so everybody understands, and then please, the Ministry of Tourism, and Darren, you correct me if I'm wrong. The ministry has a 10-year blueprint for a new tourism strategy. Following that, the Tourism Authority has a project that contributes to that and is one of the elements of that 10-year strategy. So we are talking about a 5-year project to be undertaken by the Tourism Authority and a 10-year blueprint. So it's very important to have plans and to have a vision of long term. We are going to have a short time for discussion here. And I think what is interesting is that we have UN representatives here. We have the industry representatives here. And the idea is both projects, they brought ideas, the national strategy and the project that is going to be taken by the Tourism Authority. They are not done, so they are not crafted in totality. The World Bank will be supporting the implementation of that strategy, but it's not ready yet. So the idea is that what are the things that we have around the table that the Ministry of Environment, that UNDP is doing, that could contribute to accomplishing some of the vision that is happening. We also have some people that are online. We have Claudia. We have some people also from ILO. So online, that if you would like to make some comments, we have made some questions, but maybe those questions, there's too many. We have only 20 minutes discussion. So I would like for you to be very frank in terms of what are the kind of things that can be put forward that are ready, what the current initiatives that we have. like co-share, the CAP business initiative. So how you could be contributing to this large vision of becoming sustainable. And also, what are the key ingredients as well that we're missing? So if we want to be a certified destination, if that is our objective, do we have recycling in place? What are the reputational risks of not doing the homework of the basics, taking care of the backyard? And I know that some of this is part of getting companies ready, assisting the companies. But I think that probably we need to accelerate the pace. We are in a competitive mode with other islands as well. And there are some questions that we have put here. So how can the current initiatives in tourism sector accelerate sustainable development and related key sectors that are also fundamental, one of them being waste, for instance, that have been discussed. How that the future plan projects, we have future projects, UNDP is thinking about of some of them. So how this future projects and initiatives can be aligned to this strategy. We also need to see also the priorities, the priorities that can inform what we were talking about, the cooperation agreement between the government and the UN team working here in Mauritius. So how those priorities could be aligned to the current focus of this new strategy. So I will stop here, and the floor is yours. I really need, we have a very short time, and I ask you to be concise and give your idea to us. Anyone that would like to start UNDP.
I'm starting because I have to leave very shortly. So one question. At one point, you mentioned that you're starting with Rodriguez for this green status because the government is closer together, or ministries are closer together there, physically, I mean. So my question would be, given the fact that attaining this kind of status in Mauritius requires the collaboration of everyone, how far are we in our journey to get everyone on board at the very highest level of government? Is there, at the very highest level, some kind of realization that for this to happen, everyone will have to participate and contribute in some way or another? And most probably habits will have to change. Or is the work only being done in isolation at the Ministry of Tourism or the Tourism Authority? And I'm asking this question because from the perspective of UNDP, we tend to focus on the big things as asked by government. And for me, this is a big thing, and it needs to come from the very highest level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see the project, the strategy is very ambitious, very well structured, but a lot of cross-cutting. To succeed, it will need cross-sectoral collaboration. And one of the elements, it is also the priority that was presented, is the capacity to monitor. Because monitoring is not only collecting data and see if you are making progress or not. It is also capacity to take decisions that are required to correct things that are not going well. Is there? So my question is there any cross-sectoral body that will do those two roles, monitor the success, the progress to the strategy, and also have enough power to take decisions in the name of the different sectors involved?
Thank you for the question, the comments as well. Well, in fact, this project, I must admit that when it's still at its initial level. We have different ministries. The Ministry of Land Transport, they just came up with a plan. We have the Ministry of Environment doing a lot of projects. We have even the Ministry of Housing and then coming with a green initiative in their, I would say, guidelines. We came with green initiative in our guidelines for tourist residents for every activity. Everyone is working toward the same goal. You are right, we need the buy-in of the high level of the government. Okay? Once the project is accepted at our ministry level, it's finalized at our ministry level, it will go up to our minister, who is the deputy prime minister as well. He will take it to cabinet. It will go through the Ministry of Finance to get funding. So it will be, at that time, it will be a buy-in of all of it. And the good thing is that everyone is working in the same direction. That's why we are coming with big project like this, because it is the objective of the to go towards a greener country, green initiatives taken by everyone in the sector, and this can lead towards the green destination. That's why we need now the information data collection to be able to go towards that, because we are going, everyone, without this project, everyone is going.
Est-ce que je peux parler en français, s'il vous plaît? Ah. Oui, donc merci pour la réponse. Donc, il y a un level de communication. Ma question est, est-ce que ce niveau de communication dépassera la politique? Parce que notre façon de faire, un peu ici en Maurice, c'est que les choses changent avec les couleurs et le temps. Donc, pour moi, c'est important au niveau du développement durable que ça soit au-delà de ça, parce que ce n'est pas, c'est important que le pays, en gros, bref, et dépasse.
I would like to add something. This is a project, long-term project. From everything I heard this morning, I think there's a lack of education. And if we want this project to be sustainable, we must count on the younger generation. And this must start at school. I'm just thinking of Eco School, which must be nationwide program adopted. For example, you were talking about road rage. All schools or road rage are Eco School. What is interesting is that one of the conditions of Eco School is that the parents of the kids must be involved, people from the community must be involved, and they are audited externally. And I think this could be a real boost, get the young generation involved directly in a few years and indirectly for government. I'm talking about pre-primary, primary, secondary, and tertiary level.
I'm going to talk about what CAP Business Indian Ocean is doing right now. So we're working on an action plan on the different sectors. One of them is the tourism industry, but there's also blue economy and other biodiversity and circular economy. But basically, we're working, so the CAP Business is the Chamber of Commerce of the Indian Ocean, so the private sector. So maybe if we're focusing on Mauritius, but we are viewing the whole Indian Ocean, and our diagnostic basically for tourism, very similar to what has been mentioned. But I think one of the very important thing is trying to find the finance transition for from a tourism model, which is more traditional and which is not sustainable, to something which is more sustainable. To do that, you need financing because post-COVID, the companies and especially the SMEs, they have no money to go from why should I buy this? It's too costly. It's a lot of investment. I don't have time. I need to recover. I need to find my client back. Okay. So this is something which is in general, whatever islands you have in Indian Ocean, or it's not only Indian Ocean, it's worldwide. This is the major problem. So financing and having a line of financing, not just from the private bank, but maybe from microfinance and the backup from the World Bank or IFC, or you don't know. It's very important to do the transition. And because we can talk a lot, but if the private sector doesn't have the money to do that, because big companies, they will find the money, but the small companies which are creating more value directly to the communities, the villages, etc., they can't do that. Okay, so this is a major problem. And I also want to mention that when we talk about sustainability, it's not just about environment, mangroves, trees, or whatever. Okay, this is about creating value for the population to be more resilient and having sustainable. This means it needs to be profitable. Okay, so to be profitable, you need to invest in people. So talent is very important. This is also what CAP Business is also viewing through the Chamber of Commerce to really push and help the new talent, because without the new generation, there's no sustainability, and they have a lot of projects, and innovation incubators is very important there to support. So we're talking about certification and label, which is very important for the region, because here is for Mauritius, and Rodrigue can be the first destination to be certified, but it's also have the region certified as a green destination. That's an objective, because when you see what the Pacific Islands are doing, what the Caribbean Islands are doing, the competition is worldwide. Okay, so if you want people to come to Mauritius or to the Indian Ocean, we need to really work all together. And the first thing, which is most important, is working together. And I think today we can see that, but it's also through the private sector pushing also to have the regulation made after with the public bodies. But what we're trying to do that with CAP Business now with the different islands, but I think per island also trying to have a committee with everyone, not just the public bodies, but also the private sector, the civil society, the NGOs, because it's only working together and we have the big picture of what can be done and find solutions. So I think that's the also experience with what we've been doing, and also my personal experience as a consultant in many different islands, and working together we find solutions. And I think that's what we were doing with Elena and the different. So I think it's very important. And one other thing, the KPI for sustainability can't be 1 million tourists or the number of tourists. It should be the value created per tourist and injected in the society. This is very important, because I have 1 million tourists. You see the figures. I mean, the revenue is very low, and you see every year is going less and less. More tourists, less revenue. So I mean, my profitability is very bad. Okay, so we need to have more dollars or euros and less tourists, because then it's also less, print on the country and islands. Okay, this is for all islands, it's not the Mauritius, but I mean, that should be also our KPI, not the number of tourists growing every year. So
I'll just follow up on that and piggyback on that. I completely agree with the fact that we need to see where people send. But right now today, we don't have enough spaces outside of hotels where tourists can buy local. We don't have enough local products that also represent what we want to represent as souvenirs and Mauritius, and that are made here and that are quality products. Obviously have them in, but most people need to have spaces where they can sell and showcase this. They need to have capacity building, create more, and they also need the data on what, which right now is data that is being kept within the hotel. Know what people want, the tourists are looking. We just need to calculate this data and just pass it on to our members and the local entrepreneurs so that they can actually create products for sustainable island. And that there's a lack of spaces where tourists can buy local products. Airport and shops that can be, there's a lot of spaces that need to allow them to buy and do.
I also would like to. Environment, very important. They need the environment for tourism.
Yes, thank you. First, thank you to Paola and Darren for their presentations. I react mainly in terms of the initiatives that we are having at the ministry and also the future, our future projects. So in terms of networking this year, through the EU Switch Africa Green Project, because we are working with 3 sectors. So there is the agriculture, manufacturing and tourism. So we had a national policy dialogue I think it was in March, April this year, where we had the 3 sectors, and the intent was really to see how we can have a networking among these 3 sectors. And really one of the main recommendations was to come up with to boost the local production so that we can feed the tourism sector. And now in January, we are going to have 2 workshops. One would be networking, where we are going to see how we can replicate on best practices and having these networks to really to accelerate this sustainability in the tourism sector. And there will be a back workshop. It's a regional workshop with 7 African countries. So we are also going to share with these countries, and they're going to share with us how these countries they are doing in terms of networking. So this is for the Switch Africa Green. Then in terms of circular economy, because the momentum right now is to bring circularity. And this is one of our major projects that we have embarked in. We are developing a roadmap on circular economy, and we are working in 6 sectors. So there is the agri-food, there is the construction, there is solid waste, consumer goods, which will entail furniture, electronics, all these consumer goods. Then there is also going to be sustainable consumption and production. Now, these sectors, tourism cuts across all these sectors, and representatives have been invited to all these consultations. And I think when I'm looking at these components for the green destination, I did not see too much about on bringing circularity, but I think this is a very important component that we need to integrate there also. Thank you.
I'm quite new to Mauritius, so I don't have this thorough knowledge of the industry and the sector in general, but what I feel important based on what I read so far and what I gathered from the discussion is to change the focus from a focus on the, let's say, the production unit or where you deliver the services, which is the hotel or the small guest houses, etc., to a focus on the territory. Because when you speak about cross-cutting issues, when you speak about actors, also clients, you have to have a focus on everything that the ecosystem and not only the units. And for instance, when I travel in Mauritius, what I see is that you have some places that are packed with tourists and others that are beautiful villages, beautiful roads with small shops and no tourists at all. It's agreeable. It's cool to have these preserved areas, but also you could say all these ecosystems, not only value chains, but the whole territory can also benefit from more interaction with tourists, and maybe also send some local products to tourists and to local consumers, let's say, with different prices, maybe within a different package of services, but it can also benefit the whole local economy. So just, I know it may sound a bit abstract, but there is very concrete steps to go towards it. A change of focus from the very unit, restaurant, hotel, shop to the territory as a whole, being it a district or the north, the south, the west, etc. This is to be discussed. But I think this is very important, and it has critical linkages with what has been said so far. So in terms of cross-sectoral issue, buy-in from the population, providing services and products locally made, having more dealers and shops in interaction with tourists, etc.
Effective, the new cooperation framework between the United Nations and the government of Mauritius was mentioned. We are indeed going to start a new cooperation framework. And in that regard, the UN organized a discussion with CEOs, big banks, And I remember, and one of them saying, it will come to what Mr. was saying about KPI. One of them said the model of sustainability that is suggested to us is not sustainable, which means is not profitable. So I think as we discuss later on, the theory of change and the trio problem, in the end, I think in the context of Mauritius, I might be wrong, but I've been here in the context of Mauritius, what the private sector will decide will determine if this project will succeed, because the even sustainable strategy needs to be profitable, and it's not easy. Also, you can see that will end there. When it comes to survival mode, then everybody goes to the easiest way. You can see with the war in Ukraine, countries are going back to not renewable energy.
So, yes.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to say that it's a good move towards the long-term vision for the industry. And I think we should move to the next level. You see, the devil is in the details. We should move to indicators at the level, having a long-term plan with clear measures who would be responsible to implement what are we aiming at each level, and having that sort of coordination mechanism and a team that would monitor, obviously, whether we are on the right track over the years, whether obviously there are changes taking place in the environment at the same time, and whether the plan would have to be updated. So we need that this systemic approach to implementing strategy, and obviously costs. So do we know how much this strategy will cost in the long term, and how do we mobilize resources to implement this plan? And the second thing that was mentioned, obviously, a coordination mechanism. Monitor. The third thing is about technology. The word technology in the because technology would help, for example, in training people. Yes, we do have 100,000 people in the sector. Then how do we reach them? Technology has helped us to reduce the cost of sensitization, awareness, training, and so on. You have several platforms like Moodle platform. You just log in, you get all the courses over there. The initial cost would be simply developing the training and then making it available to everybody. And the third thing, I think, the last thing rather, is about human resources. So we asked ourselves today, there was a call about using migrants in the industry to fill labor market gaps. So have we asked ourselves, first of all, why are people going to other countries or going to other industries? When we know, obviously, there are certain disparities and inequalities. The CEO earning 50 times the wages, the salary, or the the lower level staff. So how do we share the fruits of the tourism industry to make people more motivated and remain in that industry over the long term? Thank you.
Those issues.
Bonjour, moi c'est Yashri, je suis responsable de l'économie bleue à Cap Business aussi, on va dire. Et j'ai quelques remarques à faire. Déjà par rapport au tourisme à l'île Maurice, c'est vraiment un tourisme côtier autour de l'avant. Et je trouve que c'est assez dommage que le ministère de l'économie bleue ne soit pas invité à cette réunion parce que c'est un petit peu eux qui gèrent un petit peu les lagons. Et je peux dire que le lagon, quelque part, est très, très impacté par, ça a été mentionné avant, par le changement climatique, par la pollution plastique et un usage intensif de ces lieux. Maurice, un petit peu comme tous les petits États insulaires, a tendance à utiliser le lagon avec beaucoup d'intensité, mais aussi extensivement. Donc, on ne peut pas utiliser plus de terre, on va utiliser de plus en plus. Il y a aussi toute la partie impact carbone. C'est dommage que mon collègue n'a pas pu, Michael Apaya n'a pas pu faire le déplacement, mais c'est important pour que les hôtels puissent montrer comment ils vont faire pour réduire leur impact carbone, parce que les touristes pour venir à Maurice, maintenant sur les billets d'avion, c'est affiché leur impact carbone. Donc, ils vont prendre l'avion d'Europe pour venir à Maurice, ils sauront quelle va être leur contribution. Quelque part, si les hôtels puissent montrer que eux, ils sont neutres au niveau carbone, ou même s'ils vont contribuer quelque part à capter le carbone, je pense peut-être en mangrove ou d'autres activités, ce serait assez intéressant. On a parlé aussi de sustainability. Sustainability, il y a aussi toute la partie locale, la pêche locale, les pêcheurs, qui sont très impactés par le changement climatique et autres. Je pense que les activités des pêcheurs et d'autres personnes au niveau de local doivent être mises en compte dans ce plan d'action. Parce que il y a des pêcheurs font face à plusieurs menaces. Par exemple, quelque chose sur lequel j'ai beaucoup travaillé, c'est la pollution plastique. Et on parle aussi des engins de pêche qui sont abandonnés et qui sont jetés en mer. Il y a un grand travail de sensibilisation qui va être fait par business au niveau de la région, la sensibilisation de ces engins de pêche abandonnés, mais aussi de trouver des solutions pour et recycler ces et dernier élément, je vais rejoindre François, c'est très très important de mettre en place l'éducation et le très jeune âge, vraiment conscientiser la population, quelque part ce sont les futures personnes qui vont être employées par l'industrie de l'hôtellerie pour différents impacts de l'environnement. Voilà, merci.
Très important. I'm better in English. It's very important, to understand the good points made about governance, the need for governance, the need for clear KPIs for monitoring, the need to integrate all the sectors, that are cross-cut the tourism sector, including the blue economy sectors. There is strong linkages there, especially because, Mauritius is an island, so talking about sustainable tourism outside of blue economy, it's a little bit strange. So I do not know if anyone online would like to make a word in terms of the strategy. If there's any that there is John and Claudia that are online. Would you like to make any comments to the strategy or to the points that have been raised? Oh, yes, if you, there is something in the chat, I don't know if it's something written.
No.
No. So, there is still time if you would like to add something in the chat. I think that we deserve a break now. I think that, there are good points that are putting up there. We are going to reconvene in 10 minutes. So the idea of the next session is to get to the granularity. Because what we have heard this morning, it is the ambition. The ambition is something that, donors are very much interested, but they want to see where we are going to tackle, what are going to do the things that we will be doing to sustain the tourism sector. So are we going to work? So we have seen several criteria that Darren has put, but how we will get there. So certification, building capacity, getting a financial mechanism, etc. These are activities, but what is the problem, is that the problem that SMEs, for instance, do not know how to go through the paperwork, or is it the problem that to become a certified island, we still don't have the circularity of plastics yet, we still have problems with waste, what are the key problems that we need to address, to get to the level of being certified. So that is what we are going to discuss in the next session. So as the UN Environment Program, what we will be doing is that we will be assisting on the development of the problem and trying to shape the project that is going to be created on this bigger ambition.
Allô? Encore pour qu'on t'y causer. Allô? 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 Toi, tu veux remonter? Pas grave. Quand je peux te proposer, je peux poser pas prévu. Et notre petit break là? Quand tu sur la déo? Merci. Bon, ok, merci.
L'environnement, c'est pas loin. Ce qui est super, c'est qu'il va y avoir des formes de l'opération. J'espère, moi, elle est sortie, je pense. Qu'il y avait trop pas assez de choses de jamais des meilleures photos dans les gens en train de travailler. Super. Ouais. C'est exactement des histoires humaines. Merci.
Yes.
Let's see if others are coming as well, so we should start soon. Out here. Let's begin. So I'm going to make a brief presentation of some of the research that we have been undertaking and some ideas in terms of when we develop this new initiative, um, what are the problems that we should be tackling and how we can structure a fungible proposal for international donors. So we have for 2 years assessed the environmental impacts of the island of Mauritius. We have identified that there are key environmental impacts, some of the economic
importance. You know, we have heard from the Ministry of Tourism, the numbers speak for themselves. But in terms of
environmental impact, there are critical numbers that we should take into account when we think and when we plan about tourism for future. One of them is that water, a tourist consumes 10 times more water.
Sorry.
A tourist consumes 10 more times water than a citizen from Mauritius. So can we have millions of tourists arriving? Do we have enough water for all the tourists that are coming? So we have been discussing about carrying capacity, but this is very important to take into mind when we do plan for the island. Then the GHG emissions, it represents 16% of the total emissions in Mauritius. So this is a calculation that we did, and we have extracted international travel. Why we have extracted this? Because there is no international agreement yet in relation to the GHG emissions for travel. And then 19% of energy consumption in the island is of the sector. And then waste, there is 170 tons of waste that is generated by the hotels in the island. So this is some key pictures, some key figures that we have to take into. Then we have done a work to try to see the funding landscape for Mauritius. We have identified some opportunities, some currents that are already existing in the island. So it's the French Agency for Development, the European Union, that has already supported the project, but probably, in the next cycle of their funding, they should see also how they can continue financing the project. Then we have several initiatives that have done by CAP businesses, by Business Mauritius, etc. There are upcoming funding calls and opportunities that we could seize in terms of developing a large proposal for Mauritius. One is the International Climate Initiative, which is in fact the initiative that financed the Transforming Tourism Value Chain project. There is the Green Climate Fund, and there are the International Finance Corporation and Proparco that are also financing private investment. But it's especially interesting public and private investment as well, either in waste, recycling, etc. They could be good sources of funding as well. So in the multi-stakeholder consultation that took place in June, we have worked 2 days, one with the private sector and another with the UN agencies, and here there was a clear plea at the time, and thank you very much for the Ministry of Tourism understanding and already started acting on the first one, that there was a need for a long-term tourism strategic plan, that we need to engage larger resources to offer skills development for smaller hotels enterprise, because we know that there is a lot of hotels that are leading the way in the island, but how they can collaborate with the small hotel enterprises was something that was highlighted. Then there was a need, and we just spoke over the coffee break, the need for talking more in how we can have this multi-level collaboration and sharing knowledge. We also had said that we need to strengthen policy, regulatory, institutional frameworks. This is also part of developing big plans, for future. We also have mentioned responsible travel behavior, the need for developing tourism packages, and the collaboration between government departments and agencies that needs. Then we have discussed with the other UN agencies what would be how the UN could be supporting Mauritius to become more sustainable. And then they said that we need to create a multi-agencies collaboration as we move forward to building the cooperation agreement with the country. We need to engage more on circular business models, encourage low emissions. Here, what we have said about the cross-sector, about the linkages between sustainable food systems, local community, and tourism. And then another point that was mentioned also about collaboration with other countries and region. As UN, we work quite a lot in the Indian Ocean, so it would be also interesting to see how we can spread this over. And then one of the things that were not mentioned with the private sector work, but it came out very well in the UN meeting, was the need for strengthened gender equity in the tourism sector. So how we can also be more inclusive with the vulnerable groups that are part of the sector. And the need for training and upscaling on sustainable tourism practice, and the need for capacity building to tourism stakeholders. So these are some of the, so we have tried to create what we called a problem tree. So a problem tree would, in a theory of change, would be the first step to create a solution. So here we are going from a vision that we want to become a sustainable island, that we want definitely to become accredited. But what is the problems that we are trying to solve? So these are very important to develop the narrative for each project. So I thought we have worked together in a team based on the outcomes of the 22 session, the 22 of June. And we have put what were the causes, what were the barriers, what is the problems, and what were the effects. So these are some that we say that we have many problems. We have to narrow down to one problem. What is the problem that we have? Maybe this is not the right problem, and that's what this meeting is about. So the problem that we have identified is that tourism operations in Mauritius do not take full account of its current and future economic, social, and environmental impacts. So could be the problem just working with SMEs? Yes, could be. You know, so that's why we have, if we think that the objective is that SMEs do not monitor and report, for instance, on their impacts on the economy, etc., then we can change the problem here. So I'm just putting what we have added. It can be transformed because it depends on the ambition and on how we are going to get it. So for that problem that tourism do not take into account, they do not report the GHG emissions, etc. The causes is that we are, because it's an insular country, we are insufficiently equipped to respond to the triple planetary crisis. What is the triple planetary crisis? Is biodiversity loss, pollution, and climate change. COVID recovery packages are not tailored to the needs of the small players who are particularly vulnerable to external shocks. So even though the government have provided some support for the very little ones, they are still vulnerable for next. So when is going to be the next pandemic? I really hope not. It's going to happen soon. But you know, when external shocks happen, how we prepare those vulnerable people? Then there are multiple agencies operating the region. They are working normally limited. There is limited coordination, and then another cause is that all these problems that was mentioned also by Paula. There is these geopolitical events such as the Ukraine war that increase oil prices, increase food prices, that create market volatility. Then there is multiple tools, but no clear guidance to businesses. So they have several tools in the islands from the different projects that they exist, but there is not a platform where a single place, you know, where you can find those. Then among of the barriers, we have the lack of a national strategy, open incentives for sustainable change. Small players lack access to funding, so things that have been mentioned before. There is support required for management policies to align with sustainability targets. And sustainable tourism offers yet not developed potential. I'm not going to read everything, but the way that we put is that every cause has a barrier, and then a barrier you have an effect. So the idea that we discussed here today is, of course, this is not what we would like to complete. Normally, this is a full, you know, it's a full A4 page with full of boxes that sometimes we cannot fit in one slide. So the idea is to capture with you what would be the problem, you know, and probably we could start with it. So if you think we should narrow down the problem for a specific subsector, because we cannot say, you know, government and businesses are not monitoring and reporting TAG. It's too large, you know, for any donor. What is the focus that we would like to give in the island? You know, what is the problem that we want to? So I will stop here and see if there is any comments, any suggestions. For the problem.
Maybe just before all this, I think a comment made, I noticed that even in the sector, nobody really knows what is sustainable, what it implies. And I think the implication of what is sustainable tourism in terms of financing, what should I do, energy, whatever, training, what is it? Because definition is very blurry. So my sense, first of all, before defining all this, even for the stakeholders, the tourism sector, other, everybody was around this, first having a common definition and a common goal, and that everybody knows what it means and it implies. That's a major thing, I think, already.
Yes, so probably this is one of the causes, right? So one of the causes is the lack of awareness for the sustainability aspects. So that's good. Anyone? So this is an important point, and also comes to certification, you know, because when people they don't have a standard, you know, they used to use different labels, different that sometimes are not recognized. But it's important to see that if we have a room for greenwashing, if there's no regulation for tourism operations, then our criteria, they will not know what is the right level that they should.
Yes, I would like to mention one thing. If we agree that we need a lot of sensitization awareness, and when you come to a bit of granularity, I would maybe suggest we also focus on the financial sector. Let's say the banks. We know that we will need the private sector to give more effort towards the combat of climate change, because it just depends on government. But then they also need to be éclairci quels sont les enjeux, right? And probably the biggest boost that will come is once we get the financial sector, those that hold the strings of the purse, to become fully aware, understand what is happening, because they have a traditional model. We lend little risk, we get the money, but now things are changing, and what are the challenges? So that's one area that we need. We also need, for example, what about the risk, the climate-related risk, the need to disclose the climate-related risk. The new directives coming from the EU, and even now we have let's say the Bank of Mauritius start getting involved in climate change. So I think that's a full area that we need to work. When you do adaptation project or even renewable energy, there's a lot of funds that are advanced in the beginning and then little funds afterwards. So there's a lot of risks which are associated with it. And until you see something concrete, the interest rates are high. So I think that's an area before. Thank you.
Yeah, without money, we cannot do anything, right? So I think that, yeah, you need financing. Anyone, that, maybe you should, that work with the co-chair and that have the experience from a small and medium enterprise.
I agree. If you don't put any enforcement, they are not fighting for the right people. Not the law, don't, they are not going to change. I was just looking, I mean, maybe the problem is that they don't think that the financial aspect. They need some of them. From the experience we had from the some operators already. But the big problem is actually they abide by what are the legal requirements. The ministry has new policies around many. So they are going for maintenance as well. But what is more important? I mentioned that more territory. So it's so how we get the whole country aligned and together so that we are recognized as a system. I think the main issue is
Anyone would like to? By the environment and add on, additional reward. But will be, because policies you will be regulated. You are in. But if you are doing more, it's because other things, other advantages. Incentives is something that is very important, and it was also mentioned by Darren, and when he presented also results of this budget. So I think that award, but also how to get access to the finances.
would like to add also to that is like we have to change the perspective, especially sector. Or the offer was created, the demand was coming. Experience. Today is different. The demand is driving the offer. So it's a very different mindset because today the client wants something. You have to provide. You can see the transition today from hotel accommodation, Airbnb or other kind of accommodation because what the hotel structure or sector is offering is not what the client wants. It's not a matter of price. Pricing is another, competitiveness is another thing, but it's also a matter of what I want to experience, what the demand wants, what the trend is. And this is very important to also have this perspective of a marketing tool using, I mean, I will say policy is good, you need policies, but to really convince the SMEs or private sector, you have to show them the value of being green and having more tourists because of the day you're going to have more money. Basically, that's the way of really changing faster by providing finance mechanism to support the transition. And I think this is very important. You can oblige people to do this, but it's better if they take the project for themselves because it's go one further. They're going to be giving more value to their company and the clients are going happy. Marketing tool here is very important. Not greenwashing. Because greenwashing today, you just kill your product because of whatever everybody's for. Yes, they say that and they put other ugly thing and they just they are fantastic level, but in the end, bad on the other side. Very important.
One else. Probably I will put here to help us. I've mentioned some other underlining causes, and I think you made a very important point about the digitalization that we didn't have this yet. Because that is also one of the ambitions of the ministry, how we can work with digitalization and business trend. You know, nobody now, I have a booking.com app in my phone. So how do I get booking.com being offering sustainable things? You know, in the case of they have a standard now. They have tutored and they have collaborated with GSDC to create different. Put these criteria eventually being used with the small and medium enterprises, you know, to get this bottom-up level. These are some of the things that eventually we can look at in future when we think about activities and that we didn't explore a lot. Then we are talking about marketing, but you know, where do I find information? Sustainable offers in the island, you know? So these kind of things of getting the demand and getting the right people to be, but it's the problem. The problem that we have mentioned is that it's the tourism businesses are not reporting or they are not aware of their emissions, their impact on social environment. So this is the stated problem. So is this correctly identified? Would you like to share something more specific? Should we be focusing on the finance directly?
Rightly so, because we need to focus on these SMEs. At the Tourism Authority, we have more than 6,000 operators and more than 85% of them SMEs. So they are the one also driving the tourism sector. And one thing you must be aware as well, out of all our tourists that come to Mauritius, only 57 to 62% stay in hotels. The others, it is outside the hotels. So they are as much, they are important operators that we need to capacitate. But before going for policies and making them mandatory, I think that the capacity building, the sensitization, the training needs to be followed. And we started it with around, as I said, 3,300 to 300 and 500, but a lot have to be done to reach the 100,000 mark. So everyone in the industry, they need to get acquainted of what is sustainability, what they need to do, and what are the benefits of sustainability. Now, we have been speaking about the zero emission lagoon by 2030, and this we started it as from 2018 when we started the project. Every time we go to the boat operators, to the aircraft operators, they say that it's too costly. You should make a transition from a fuel-based engine to an electric engine. It is 1.5 to 2.5 times more expensive than a traditional engine. But they don't know the benefits after because the return on investment is only 3 years. They don't have to buy any fuel. They don't have to pay for any maintenance costs. And the batteries last a minimum of 10 years. So it's only 3 years about return on investment, and then they start making profit out of it. So it is a case of really spearheading a good marketing visibility about sustainability. And now it is also about the destination starting to think what will be the benefits of making Mauritius a certified destination. So we are only trying right now, and I do agree with it because after COVID, we need to recuperate our tourists that we have lost. We are focusing on how we are going to get back the loss as soon as possible. But then we need to also look at the sustainability about it. Because once all these tourists who couldn't travel, who had their tickets booked, their reservation made, they had to travel, they had to come back. And whatever we call the revenge travel or whatever. But it will come to a point when they will start thinking, do I come back to Mauritius again, or do I go to another destination? So it is about continuing that sensitization. That's why our strategy is not for 1 or 2 years, but it is a 5-year strategy where it will encompass also that sensitization that needs to be pursued again and again. Above all, when we have trained about all these people, that they are conscious about what is sustainable tourism in its true aspect, then comes the policy, and also we need to know how to say no. And we need to know what will be the alternative options for these operators, but does not form part anymore of a sustainable island in terms of tourism. So we need to think with them, co-create, create new activities so that there's an alternative livelihood for these operators. Must be able to say no to dolphin watch. Must be able to say no to, well, not in Mauritius, to elephant ride. Must be able to say no to quad biking in nature-based activities. So it is an aspect of strong policy taking, but at the same time, seeing the alternative modes to recycle all these operators into operation.
To add to that, also what Darren is saying, innovation and talent is here with incubators. We're talking about incubators earlier, but it's where finding alternative activities would be a very interesting project for government.
Just my 2 cents on the question. Again, acknowledging that I'm not, I do not have, I'm very knowledgeable of the challenges and all. I think the core problem may be well identified, but it depends on the focus that we want to make, because as it is considering, which we all agree is not bad at all, but as we are all convinced already by sustainability, it's focusing on sustainability as an end per se, which it is. But still, it doesn't give this aspect of urgency of positioning Mauritius in the new, let's say, in the new world or the new vision, the new demand for tourism services. And so it's like, okay, if you do it, it's good, you know, it's better, but it can take time or you have challenges. But it's a question of, it's not a question of making it willingly, or it's a question of adapting to a new reality. And if you do not adapt, you will it will be difficult for you to thrive. So maybe the problem can be posed. I'm not saying it has to be, but can be posed also in terms of the risk of losing attractiveness for the destination as it is. The destination or Mauritius is not fully adapted to the new reality. And I think formulating like this, it gives more a problem of urgency and of necessity. But it's just, I'm not saying it has to be this way, but just some food for thought. And then on the right actors, indeed, I think SMEs are the right actors, but we shouldn't maybe limit it to players already operating in the tourism industry. Many players that are not even seeing themselves maybe as merely tourism actors, they are potentially, they can potentially become or offer services or goods to tourists. Not only, it would be much better if everybody have a share of output for tourism and others for local populations, because also when the shocks are coming, it balances a bit the shock and the vulnerability. But anyway, I think we should think not only of the players already in the sector, but again, as I was saying, of the territory as a whole, small fishermen, small shops, any local services, but that has to do with well-being, with ocean-based services or production. Even if now they are just working for the local populations, they may diversify a bit. And we saw it, for instance, after the Wakasho, there was this support for young fishermen to diversify their activity. They couldn't fish anymore, and to be also skippers for tourists. So if you focus 100% on this, you are still vulnerable, because if shock affects tourist demand, then you are again back to your position just after the Wakasho of the fishermen. But if you diversify and you develop new products, some of them high-end, you can also be less vulnerable in the face of upcoming shocks. And so I would say SMEs, yes, but not only the SMEs already operating in the sector or 100 operating 100% of the sector, but also bringing us a larger perspective of the territory as a whole, be it the district or the broader region. And not forgetting Rodrigo, of course, because it's critical.
It's very important point, and I think that, you know, your suggestion is very good, and I do not know what other things, but, you know, I think that eventually focusing the problem on the tourism value chain actors. So fisherman is one of them, you know, the manufacturer of souvenirs is another one of them. So probably we could focus on SME general, but SMEs of the tourism value chain, you know, and knowing that the tourism value chain can be a fisherman, can be the guides, that can be, so focusing on those small players of the value chain would be. Any ideas in relation to the project?
I think I agree with you that we should not focus on SMEs in general. We need evidence. We need have the evidence base that we can decide. So the most segmented, targeted approach would be appropriate, building on the evidence. So who's, for example, which kind of businesses in the tourism sector can be more? And obviously this would be the baseline, the starting point. And from that, and how do we get the 60% to 10%? Yeah, I think the targeted approach.
Yeah, I think there is the need of evidence base, and when we started working our project, so maybe just one of the reasons why we have worked with large business. We have worked with large business because they have the highest mitigation. So the problem is related to what you want. If you want that the island is resilient, then you are working with adaptation. So how the small business can be prepared for external shocks, you know, and how they can. We have felt from the experience of working so many years on this project is that the Mauritius large business, they do have the tools, and they are equipped sometimes with a sustainability manager, sometimes with a team of 5-6 people. You know, but SMEs are not equipped. So that is when we frame the problem, we can frame the problem from the mitigation side. Is that the objective to transform the island carbon neutral? Yes, you know, so yes, by 2050, a lot of islands have already made this pledge. You know, a lot of countries have made. If that is the pledge, we have to work with all businesses. We should focus all. If not, if we want to adapt, if we want to be more resilient, if people are here more for SMEs, and because they do not have had finance until now, maybe they are the ones that we want to work with the value creation. In my opinion, I do believe that even if you work with the small ones, you should, at the same time, create the enabling environment that will also help, you know, the large ones, right? So I think there is a different thing in terms of a development project and a strategy for the country, because the strategy for the country has to look at the large, the small, you know, and have to look at it. But for a project, you know, what the donors would be more appealed to. So this is the way that we conceive the problem, put it in general terms, and then we have been asking and we have been hearing a lot that we should be narrow it down to SMEs. But you know, I do not know. I put it at large, and I come to you, you know, with your suggestions in terms of what would you think. A lot of hoteliers have said to us, you know, but we clean our beach and then you cross and then you cross and then you go to those small hotels and their beach is dirty, but they go to walk that way too. So, you know, how we can work for this, to cover the entire territory. So probably, I do not know if the Ministry of Environment would like to mention something in relation to the problem, the size of, and how you see, for instance, the integration with other sectors. I would say.
The coastal zone management. So they are working on the coastal application for the coastal erosion. So there are many divisions. They are all, in a way, we are all contributing to we have the climate change. So there is now the Climate Change Act, where we're working on the mitigation, the adaptation, building resilience. So, and my division, so we are working on sustainable development. So in a way, we are all contributing to make it better green destination.
Was the field work for the MSMEs and for the bigger picture, bigger players. Is there any thinking or approach that the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Finance work with fresh students, young generations to keep the enforcing offices such as sustainability offices that lacks in the private and public sector to drive this because they have motivation, energy, and
Agents of change, as we always say. And so we have a master plan also where we have put a lot of emphasis on the environmental culture, la culture environnementale. So where we are coming with these kind of things, where the youth will be like ambassadors on the field. And for the primary and secondary schools as well, we have just developed a master student charter, and then each school will have to like customize them for their own school. And also because you're mentioning about the universities, so even at the level of universities, we are even thinking in terms of the curriculum where we need to integrate these things. So it's not only a student who is having a course on sustainability that needs to know about the environment. It's even someone doing language or anything. So they also need, because it's something that everyone has to be environment conscious. So these are things that are coming with the implementation of our master plan.
know that we are working with the youth and also with education, an important problem that we have seen, and as one of the causes, the lack of awareness on the sustainability issue. Sebastian, you had your hands raised.
Yeah, but it's just for, again, but it's just to say when I was mentioning the problems and the SMEs and the fact and the broader scope, I was not just focusing on mitigation of GHG emissions, because this is, I think this is just one part of the sustainability. So indeed, if we focus just on this, maybe the problem is a bit different and the actors also. But I was just mentioning that I was thinking of a broader sense of what sustainability means.
But anyway, I think that your comment in terms of the urgency to frame the problem is also interesting. You know, they probably put plans of competitiveness, you know, vis-a-vis other islands as well. Say they are not ready for business operation, are lagging behind the external shocks and business performance sustainability. That's something that we like well. So I think that we have heard a lot of initiatives that are already taking place. We would like to see, you know, who are the key stakeholders? We have heard a lot about the youth, about SMEs. We have also heard about the role of the large companies, and also supporting SMEs, in this game change. Is there any actor? We have heard about the governance and the policy, the need for enforcement. Is there any other actor that we have not thought about? We have also discussed about the other players that are in the blue economy, in the manufacturing businesses. Any other actor that comes to your mind that it's important to engage?
We saw that the big hotels are already embarked on the EMS and can't we impose such system on the SMEs and provide the system? Possible? Concerning recycling activities, we at the solid waste management division, we saw that many recyclers have been struggling to be able to if arrangement of the big this will be good.
Yeah, I think there is a very different, and probably Darren can respond on that on the SMEs. But from my perspective, I think that SMEs, they have quite a lot of things to deal with. So new legislation, it's an additional task. I think it works better when we provide them financial incentives. So, yeah. So in the case, I come from Brazil. So in Brazil, during the World Cup, we have created a financial scheme saying that if they get certified, they would have low interest rates for retrofitting their business. They would get low interest. So these are the things that but to get the loan, one of the objectives is that they commit to get certified by 2 years. So these are the kind of incentives that we can create. Legislation, I think it's a little bit more difficult, but Darren, do you still want to say something?
No, I believe that what you're saying, Elena, is true because all the big hotels, they get access to finance, right? So they are properly structured and they can go and knock at the doors of IFD, Sunref. Their doors are open for them, but not the SMEs. So this is where we had that talk with the MBA, Mauritius Bankers Association, but a proper fund is being tailor-made only for the SMEs with the same kind of advantages and incentives that are given by Sunref. So there is that competition level among the banks in Mauritius, the commercial banks, that they do not want to flag out what is their next steps coming up. But I believe that now what is happening around the world, it is something that will be coming quite soon where they need to open to the SMEs as well. When we are speaking also about who are the other stakeholders we need to tackle, we need to tackle also the stakeholders from outside because we are still dependent on our tour operators. Our main tour operators are from Europe. Europe, they have signed the Convention of Glasgow that they need to reduce their impact by 2030 by 50% and they are achieving net zero by 2050. So these people, these big TOs like TUI, like, well, not Tomasco, but all these big tour operators around, and even the OTAs, when they did the surveys, they say that 61% of all the customers are now going to a pro-sustainability destination. So there needs to be an open dialogue also with the tour operators, the aviation sector as well, on to how we need to work together to get to a net zero or carbon offsetting when they reach Mauritius, because we cannot be sustainable when we know one tourist is spending like 900 grams per kilometers, and from Europe is around 7,000 kilometers coming to Mauritius. So 900 kg of carbon emission per traveler. So we are already not sustainable, but we depend on that sector, but we need to see how we can offset and achieving net zero by 2050.
Yeah, I think
Just to add something to the financing mechanism, I think there also what Seychelles has been doing with other countries, like Mozambique, already, so other destinations that, and as a destination, Mauritius, think of working on the economy. We are small islands, so we are part of the economy. So this is a way also from as a country to have a bond and have the help from World Bank, because they were the one doing the Seychelles and others. But I think this is a way to finance the whole vision or strategy, become sustainable as an island, and then obviously for tourism, tourism is transversal, as we said, and everywhere. That's also a bigger challenge, but if other destinations do that, this is also.
It's just a reflection hearing it. We're talking about having a zero impact for telling people that we're reducing their impact of not having an impact. But I think there's also this whole idea of having a positive impact when you come here and being able to tell the tourist or whoever comes here that when you come here, this is all the positive impacts that you're having. If you're going to this hotel and you're going to this activity, but you're buying from this entrepreneur. So I feel like the whole positive impact as well needs to be voiced out and shared.
Thank you for the question. And I want to share some knowledge with you because we have been working with New Zealand for their new person strategy. We have worked with the Indian government for their new strategy. And I think that one of the things that is important to keep in mind is that when we develop performing tourism value chain, the targets that we had reduced 30% of emissions. It was a target that was set in 2018. Since then, 2018, 2019. So since then, a lot of science has, and the science says that there is this urgency to act. And we have to become carbon neutral by 2050. So, you know, we are, even with the targets that we have now, we are behind. So these targets need to be adapted and accelerated. So I think this is extremely important as we take, you know, the problem as we go to donors and say, well, we need not only to mitigate very fast, but we need to adapt. And this is what the support that is required for a country like Mauritius. So I just wanted to leave this to you. So not keep that in mind, the 30%, because we are still needing more ambitions on that.
What is said is the big one government is going to put forward at COP27 request for funding as a state. Much to, but not as much as bigger countries. So this is one of the main things that we're going to hopefully with having the necessary funding to go ahead with all those ideas that we have. And in the shorter strategy of the Ministry of Tourism, we are thinking of delivering as one. So while working to deliver as one, intertwining the two strategy, everyone has to work together, whether nationally, local. So this is what we working together as a situation and working time.
I do not have the time. Can it 25 minutes. Anyone would like to make any comments in relation to? I think that we didn't get to this point here in relation to how we can coordinate with actors in the region. You know, this is one of and how we can use the existing coordinating mechanisms. Advance. I think a good point was made on governance and saying, what is going to happen? We have a stakeholder advisory group for the transforming tourism, for the sustainable island Mauritius. So what is going to happen when those two projects, phase out, So how is going to be the structure for still continuing and sharing knowledge on sustainability? So I would like to hear more from you as we build up. I do not know if the Ministry of Tourism will be putting in place a new group, to assist in the strategy. Normally, the World Bank requires that. But that are things that I don't need to have an answer now, but I think in terms of coordination, any suggestions in terms of existing bodies that can transform or that can support this development or this strategy would be welcome to be shared today. Anyone? You had, Gulf Business had a very good proposal for doing a strategy for the region, right? So maybe you can set up a.
Also, just to inform, in fact, the program ends at 12:30. So that's, I think,
Just for the region, because as Gulf Business, we've been working on the sector, and I just talk for the tourism sector, but about blue economy. But basically, the objective of our action plan was also to really create, as we were saying, like a sustainable label for certification for the region for tourism, so being recognized. So good if Mauritius has a green certification first, because that could help also to show that Indian Ocean is also doing interesting thing in sustainability. So that's an objective. Obviously, communication and working together, talking together to create the framework in the end. What an example of what have been done, nicely done in the Pacific Island or other region. This is very important because it's where the framework, the common framework, is where the governments of all the different islands work together. Private sector is also willing to push in that direction. And as you said, working together, it's now we have no choice. I mean, we have to work together. Post-COVID, everything has been changed. Also, as a private level, everybody has other expectations, and we want to have positive impacts, also have more meaningful experiences in tourism industry. So why should I come to the Indian Ocean region, do 10,000 kilometers, have so many carbon footprints? Okay, come because you give a positive value to the region, because from one day to the other, we can't have no tourists coming to the Indian Ocean. So why should you come here as a tourist? So we have to give good reason to show them that there is very good initiative, that you can redeem your carbon footprint. And as a region, you can do that. You can experience tourism. Every island has something different to offer. And then have like pilot projects, share knowledge, information, collaboration, like we have many in Maurice, but we can have, there's also many in Seychelles. You have also the same in the other region, also in the Réunion. So if you don't have, like, for example, the raw material to have developed something, you can get it from the region, either Madagascar or other, and benefit from the talent and the knowledge or expertise of innovation from the other islands. So it could be the main Indian Ocean, for example, product. So there's so many things that can be worked together to really have this sustainability, like the whole thing, not just about environment, but like creating value for women, for giving other options for women, villages or whatever. So I think there's a big opportunity to work together and find this new job of talents also in the area. So we always think as islands, as islanders, but I think it's very important to think as a region, because we have much more to offer together as a tourism destination than just being one island.
I will concur with something. But at the same time, we can see, if we look at the Indian Ocean islands, I can clearly see that they are below. Like Mauritius and Seychelles, they have prioritized tourism when compared to the other island states or islands in the ocean. So it's good to go at the regional level, but at the same time, maybe try to look at specific partnerships with territories which have prioritized tourism.
I think that we are coming to an end. I will tell you what is going to be the next steps of what is going to happen after this consultative meeting. So we still stand by the Ministry of Tourism and the Tourism Authority to provide support to whatever they are doing on this sustainable tourism strategy and the ambition to get Mauritius to be a certified destination. So we will be working with the UN agencies in the country to develop a joint proposal that can assist the implementation of some elements of the strategy and some elements that are required, some of the key ingredients to transform the island, to a sustainable destination. So we will be circulating a revised draft theory of change with a narrative. It's normally the introduction that any donor asks, what is the problem? What you want to change in Mauritius to transform it to a sustainable island. So we will do that by the end of December 2022. And then what we are going to do is that we are going to tailor-made this theory of change for specific donors. Because some donors will say, I want to focus on biodiversity. So I'm interested in blue economy. I'm interested in biodiversity conservation. Some donors will say, I want climate mitigation. Some will say, this is more, I have fund for tourism and climate adaptation. So the problem will not change, but the focus probably will change in terms of how we address those problems. We know very well what are the causes, what are the effects that it has. So turning it to specific areas, I don't think it's an issue. So that is a work that we are going to do from January to January to June 23rd. So from you, what I do expect is that when there is going to be a call, especially from the governmental authorities, that we are very fast in terms of providing data, providing feedback, costing, what is the support required? Because this needs to be done sometimes in very little time, but that is the support that we are providing as ending 5 years work that we have. So I thank you very much for your good ideas, for your good suggestions, and my email here, but it's very simple. It's Elena with H .rey at unep.org, un.org. Sorry, you would change percentage. So it's un.org. But I can, as a follow-up of this email, I will be copying my email on the copy line for you. Thank you very much. Bastian.
Just to add that beyond these next steps, there is also this cooperation framework that we are doing, which will all our action is embedded in a 4 years plan. Next one, the elaboration will start now, and so although it may seem a bit far and abstract, for us, anything we will do from 2024 to 2028 will be embedded in this plan. And what we discussed today will be inputs into the plan. So first, the analytical part of the plan, which is the common country analysis, which screens a bit the trends and the upcoming risks, opportunities, challenges, and then inform as such the priority areas, the outcomes, the outputs So it's not for direct implementation of anything, but still, if it's not there, it will not be part of the UN priorities for the next 4 years. So it's very important to also know that all of this will feed in these priorities, and then it will allow us to work with you all to make this happen.
So thank you very much. Thank you for the NCPC hosting us. I mean, thank you very much once again for your kind support. Thank you very much for you that have helped with the presentation. It was, and to you, Joya, that brought us